So you wake up, go to the bathroom, step on scale and see plus 800 grams on the scale, 1.5 pounds. Panic kicks in. I failed it. I shouldn't have had that cookie yesterday. Nothing works. I will never lose weight. But let's unpack this. What does it really mean when you gain weight on scale? And how does the scale often lie to us? First of all, my name is Olga Onoschenko. I'm a certified psychotherapist, nutritionist, and I've got a PhD from the University of Sheffield. This is the channel about physiology and psychology of managing your weight. So to really learn to identify when the scale is lying to you, you need to understand what the scale actually shows. If your weight changes overnight by 500 grams, kilogram, 2 kilograms, what does it mean? What did we actually lose, or what did we actually gain? And you probably already know that this delta between your previous weight and today's weight may consist of fat, actual fat, muscles, glycogen, water, and food in your digestive tract. Let's go through all this so that you can understand better your weight fluctuations and maybe even guess what did you gain overnight or over the week and what did you lose. Let's start with fat, because this is exactly what we want to lose. We don't want to lose muscle. We're not really bothered by water fluctuations, they're normal. We're not bothered about glycogen fluctuations. I'll tell you later what it is and how it works. We want to lose fat. All our efforts should aim at losing fat. And we know that to lose fat, we need to burn more calories than we eat. And the energy deficit we create needs to be 7,700 calories in order to lose 1 kilogram. So, overnight, you can lose maximum 200 grams if you fast the previous day. Why 200 grams? Because, let's take myself. I burn 2,000 calories per day approximately. So I need to eat 2,000 calories per day to satisfy my energy needs, to maintain my weight, my energy balance. If I keep going as I normally go with all my normal activity, but I fast this day, I create a deficit of 2,000 calories, which will be equal to approximately 250 grams of weight loss. But we need to take into consideration the fact that when I'm hungry, I'm slowing down, I'm more lethargic, so probably I will not even burn those 2,000 calories this day. So just to be sure, I'm taking 200 grams of fat. The scale will show a much bigger figure. It will tell that I've lost 1 kilogram of weight if I fast the day before. Why? How does it happen that I've actually lost 200 grams of fat, but scale shows 1 kilogram? Because together with fat, I've lost glycogen and I've lost water. I will explain you later how it works. For now, you just need to understand the fact that you cannot lose, it's physiologically impossible to lose 1 kilogram of fat overnight. So what's a realistic number of fat loss? 0.5 kilogram, 1 kilogram per week, but take into consideration that often fat loss can be masked by water fluctuations, glycogen fluctuations. Let's move on. Now, muscle. As well as fat, we cannot gain or lose much muscle overnight. This is an even slower process, building muscle mass and losing muscle mass. And when you do strength training, even if you're just a beginner, you can be simultaneously losing fat and building muscle. And as a result, your weight may not be even changing. And this would be a perfect scenario if you start training, also go on a diet, and your weight doesn't change, but your muscle grow, while your waistline and your hip circumferences are going down. This is our ultimate goal for health, for aesthetics. This is a perfect scenario. This is what we're aiming at. And this is also called body composition. How much muscle mass is there in your body? How much fat mass is there in your body? Healthy fat percent is around 15-30%. For women, it will be higher, between 20 and 30%, maybe even 20-27% of fat mass. For men, it will be lower. Around 20% can be lower, can be a little bit higher, but in general, for optimal health, men need to be leaner than women. There is no exact number recommended. And how to determine what's your healthy fat percent? We need to look at behavior, we need to look at how we feel, and we need to look at our biomarkers, blood tests. So behaviors. If you eat balanced meals, do not overeat, do not stress eat. If you exercise enough according to World Health Organization guidelines, then most probably you are in your healthy weight. And if you do not have big stress at the same time. If you feel good, if you are full of energy, if you sleep well, if you're not constantly hungry, this also tells us something, that probably you are at your sweet spot. And then biomarkers. What is your lipid profile? High density lipoproteins, low density lipoproteins, triglycerides, and then HbA1c, your blood sugar over the 3 months period. And ideally, it would be good to test insulin sensitivity. It's not very easy to do in certain countries, but this could be also a good indicator of whether your fat percent is not too low, it's not too high, and actually a lot of other biomarkers. And also take a look at how are they built? Are they on the leaner side, or are they on a more curvy side? Because our fat percent is also determined by genetics. Some women will be super healthy at 18% fat, but some women, after dieting, exercising, putting a lot of effort, achieving 18% leanness, 18% fat, will lose that period because it's not natural for them. So yeah, for women it's also worth checking thyroid and female hormones, sex hormones. And glycogen is the most interesting part of it all. These are carbs stored in your muscles and liver that will later provide quick energy. 1 gram glycogen binds to 3-4 grams of water. And people may store from around 300 to 800 grams of glycogen. So women without much muscle will store around 300 gram glycogen. Bigger men with a lot of muscle will store around 800 grams of glycogen. And how do we store glycogen? We eat carbs, carbohydrates. They are metabolized into blood glucose. Glucose in our blood rises, blood sugar rises. From there, this glucose can be burned for energy immediately. Extra stuff will be stored in the form of glycogen in muscles and liver. And if we do not have much muscle, and if we had too much carbohydrates, and if we are in energy surplus, if we have overeat, then this extra glucose can be converted into fat. So never directly, never in conditions of energy maintenance or energy deficit, but it can be converted into body fat. That's why having bigger muscle mass, I don't talk about huge bodybuilder muscle mass, just healthy, like mine, muscle mass will help you to improve your metabolism and afford more carbs, more treats, more mistakes on your diet, because your muscles can absorb more of this unnecessary glucose before it turns into fat. But how does it translate into weight on scale? Imagine a huge guy went to a restaurant, ate pasta and pizza, filled up his glycogen stores, and the next day he weighs 2.5 kilograms bigger. It doesn't mean he gained fat. Most probably this is around 600 grams of glycogen multiplied by 1800 grams of water. Together it gives us 2.5 kilograms of weight. So it's not necessarily fat, and it can be easily manipulated, but you don't need to do it. You just need to understand that, like, your weight, well, my weight is 63 kilograms, but it's not exactly 63 kilograms. With water and glycogen, it will be 64.5 kilograms. And when I'm glycogen depleted and dehydrated, I will be 61.5 kilograms. So this is a range of different weights, depending on the state of my body, which has nothing to do with my fat. And we're only interested in fat. Of course, you can manipulate it. You can go and do intense training for an hour. You will deplete your glycogen stores. Or you can go on a low-carb diet. You will lose a couple of kilograms in a few days. But this will all come back, because glycogen and water fluctuates daily and hourly, and it's normal. You can also weigh yourself in the morning, during the day, and at night, and you'll see that your weight will be different. It doesn't mean you gain fat hourly or lose fat hourly. And now let's talk about water, which is 50–60% of our body weight. We can retain water if we eat salty food, if we underslept, if we're stressed, if we eat more carbs than usual, and sometimes unusual exercise, unusual intensity or duration may cause inflammation, a good type of inflammation, but this may cause water retention. And finally, food in your digestive tract. Even if your stool is regular, you have good digestion, you still may have food in your intestines. And even if you're regular, if there are no problems with digestion, you may still have food inside of you. And this also counts. Especially important is fiber. You may have a big salad or a lot of broccoli at night, or chia seeds at night, and next day you may be heavier. This is an effect of fiber, so don't panic, it just means you did well on fiber. So weight can fluctuate daily, and it's normal. And don't worry when you see plus. Do not be too happy when you see big minus overnight. If you see big fluctuations overnight, this is not fat. This is water, glycogen, food in your digestive tract. Salt, carbs, sleep, hormones, medicines, and menstrual cycle will influence your daily weight. A little bit more detail about menstrual cycle. In the luteal phase, you may be gaining water because of progesterone. You may also be craving sweets in the last week of your cycle, and you will be having sweets, and you will be having more carbs, and this may cause weight gain, temporary weight gain. During ovulation, because of estrogen spike, you may retain water. That's why we track progress for 6 weeks minimum. Better do it for 2 cycles. Cycle 1 average weight, cycle 2 average weight. Or take average weight of week 1, cycle 1, and average weight of week 1, cycle 1. Week 1, cycle 2. And compare that. And compare each phase of the cycle, each week of the cycle. And then make your conclusions. Of course, when it comes to men, normally 2 weeks is enough to see whether the progress is going on or weight is really not dropping off. And then we need to change something. And then how hormones may affect your weight and water retention. Or in so many different ways. But I would like to stress cortisol and any other hormones that cortisol influences. This may cause water retention. Chronic stress will cause water retention. Let's take 2 identical women. Woman 1 sleeps 5 hours a day, exercises like crazy, eats 1 meal a day. Super stressed, not losing weight, although definitely in deficit, definitely. And woman number 2 eats balanced meals, exercises just enough, not too much, not too little, manages stress, and learns how to recover effectively. And she will be losing weight consistently. There will be no unexplained plateaus in her journey. And my favorite topic, psychology and scale. Why gaining 200 grams does not equal failure. For the brain of dieters, of people who are influenced by diet culture, even small increase in weight may mean a disaster. Our culture has made our body weight a symbol of self-worth. I'm only valuable if the number drops. I'm good if I weigh 60 kilograms. I am bad if I weigh 65 kilograms. Or you may make a conclusion, this is my fault. I have no willpower. I shouldn't have had that extra cookie yesterday. Or even worse, I ruined everything. Might as well finish the whole cake and start on Monday. What we have here, the influence of diet culture that ties how we look to our worth. And we have here all or nothing thinking. So it's about perfectionism, shame, and a fear of not being accepted. I will stop on perfectionism because it's a common feature of many of my clients. Such people surprisingly have a lot of problems with eating behavior. Why? Because perfectionism is not only trying to do things perfectly, to have the most beautiful plate, to have the most balanced diet. It's also setting up unrealistic standards, demanding from yourself to meet these standards and beating yourself up if you do not meet these standards. It's a recipe to failure because you cannot meet unrealistic standards. You cannot achieve unrealistic goals. How do these unrealistic goals look like? I need to eat perfectly every day. I should quit sugar completely. And if I have a piece of cake, I'm a failure. I slipped off a wagon. May as well eat the whole cake. My weight should be going down every single day. And if it doesn't go down, it's my fault. And in reality, how successful dieters behave? They give themselves room for mistakes. They give themselves room for setbacks. They allow themselves to be flexible. And most importantly, this weight loss and healthy eating is not a demand, it's a preference. I prefer eating well every day. But if someday I feel stressed or I didn't sleep well, I will have a piece of chocolate, for example. And this piece of chocolate will not cause anxiety, because anxiety makes us overeat. If we feel anxious, we need soothing. And if you are still watching this video, probably you have a tendency to self-soothe with food. So we're stressing ourselves unnecessary over our behavior, over being not perfect. And this is exactly what prevents us from progressing, from getting back on track again and again, again and again. This ability to get back on track as soon as possible and do it again and again, this is what separates successful dieters and unsuccessful dieters. Of course, there is more to it. There is more to eating behavior. There's so many nuances. And our eating behavior is affected by so many factors, starting with a sense of fulfillment in your career, self-actualization, finishing with relationships, romantic relationships, the general life circumstances, and perfectionist tendencies, relationships with yourself, and so many other factors. So if you notice that you tend to overeat, if you struggle with weight, if you cannot stick to diet, it's a good time to ask yourself, do I need help? Do I need psychological help? Do I need to work in psychotherapy? Because when we're trying just to restrict food and we focus on food restriction and using willpower not to have this extra cookie, we are fighting with symptoms and we're not trying to address root cause. What causes cravings? So, what to do? How do you actually know whether you're losing fat or not? Scale can still work, but if you do resistance training at the same time, you also need to measure your waistline, and not only waistline, but probably the narrowest part and lower belly wider part if you're a woman. If you do not have narrowest part, just follow belly button. You need to measure hips, bra line, and this would be at least 3 indicators that will show you what's going on exactly in your body. So for example, if you're losing weight, if you are not losing weight but your circumferences are decreasing, it means you're losing fat but not losing muscles, maybe even building them. That's a really good situation, perfect situation. If you are losing weight but your waist is going up, this can happen over the years, then you're losing muscle and gaining fat. One of my clients, 60 years old, says, I weigh exactly the same as I weighed before I gave birth, before I got pregnant with my first child. But my jeans are 2 sizes bigger. I cannot button it. I cannot zip them up. I cannot put on my old jeans anymore. I went 2 sizes up because the belly grew, and like it's normal in menopause, fat accumulates around belly, but this is a good example of how you can maintain weight, but this is bad because you also lost muscle, and healthy muscle mass is one of health indicators. Progress photos is a very good measurement tool, especially if you train. You can see the definition of your muscles. If you're at that position, you can see how your body shape changes and how body recomposition happens. And then let's not tie everything to weight. Even if you're not influenced by diet culture and beauty standards and you're only doing it for health, we should not focus on weight only. It's about how you feel. It's about your blood tests, your biomarkers. It's about whether you sleep well or not, how energetic you are, how happy you are. What's your waist to hip ratio? For women, it should be less than 0.8. If we measure waist, then hips, divide waist by hips. For men, it should be less than 0.9. Is your cycle regular? Is your digestion good? Is your sleep quality good? What's your stress levels? Stress levels are so important. What's your fitness levels? Fitness levels may tell us more about your health, like how strong you are, what's your endurance, what's your cardiovascular fitness. It will tell us more about your health than your weight. And of course, stress management and self-regulation is so important, because better emotional state means less emotional eating, fewer cravings, and more self-compassion instead of self-criticism. And when we have more self-compassion, we are in a better emotional state. We do not need as much soothing, because when our inner critic is activated, we are in a stress mode, in a threat mode. Our nervous system perceives this as threat. If I am bad, this is dangerous. So if you develop self-compassion, if you develop better relationships with yourself, sometimes therapy, psychotherapy is needed for that, then you are better off in general. You will have less emotional eating, you will recover better, you will train better, you will have more energy. So bottom line, scale is good, but it doesn't always tell us the truth. And do not get fixated on weight, but think about your general well-being. Self-care, self-regulation, and a life with space for flexibility, joy, and a piece of cake. That's what we're aiming. Subscribe to this channel, share with the ones you care about, check useful links under this video. See you soon.